So I'm Tanya. We had discussed the
You'll
lights
let
off.
me know. You'll let me
Maybe when we
know.
start, if everyone's okay with that. But it's great to see everyone back, and we welcome you tonight to our iReady, Set, Go presentation. We wanted to host you all just to give you a really hands-on experience of what your children are doing each day through the diagnostic and through everyday lessons in the iReady program. So Krista and I decided that we were going to actually make this a presentation to three main points, because really that's what the iReady program looks like in the classroom. We're going to talk about the diagnostic and give you a little snapshot of what it looks like for your child. We're going to talk about our instruction and how we teach on a daily basis using some instructional tools from the iReady. And we're also going to talk about how we use the monitoring reports to really assist in tracking your children and kind of modifying lessons and creating challenging lessons as well. So let's get started. What is iReady Diagnostic and Instruction? Well, as we know, it's web-based, so it can be accessed from any point or place. It focuses on the domains of reading and mathematics, which are aligned with the New York State Common Core. There is a diagnostic assessment that is actually administered 3 times during the year. So there's a baseline that's administered early October. We just administered our last in December, and then there will be another coming in the spring. And it's differentiated online instruction, and what that means, it's really tailored to each child's specific learning needs and as well as where they're headed in terms of enrichment and goals. So here are the 3 main points we're going to focus on with iReady. The first is diagnosing. So through the diagnostic assessment, the program itself really pinpoints each child's sub-skill level, where they fall within that. From that, Chris and I are then able to really provide lessons that are effective and efficient in supporting their learning needs. So talking about the sub-skill, we focus on areas that they need additional support in, and then we also focus on areas of enrichment, where we can create challenging lessons for them. From that, we then move into instructing. So there's 2 models that we use with instruction. From the diagnostic reports, we're given the feedback, and we're able to create teacher-directed lessons. So I'm going to give you an idea of what that looks like on a daily basis. In the classroom, we hold specific groups throughout the day. So we introduce certain concepts and skills as a whole group. Then we break down into our small groups that have actually been profiled by the diagnostic based on how the children have performed. They're put into homogeneous groups based on their levels and needs. So we meet with them as a small group. And then also it's a time for us to meet with them in what we call a student conference, and that is more at the individual. We also hold pair share conferences, which are among 2 children or sometimes groups, where they're working on a skill of need or even of enrichment. So, for example, when they walk in the morning, usually we conduct a whole group. It's kind of our morning meeting. We discuss how we're doing, if there's anything that the children want to talk about. We then go off into some type of a writing activity as a whole group. It could be a math problem of the day, it could be a reader response, or a journal entry. From that, we break into our rotations. We generally start with reading. So Krista will take a group, I will take a group, and then we will have a group on the online technology. During the first 10 minutes of that group meeting, we basically pull from the instructional tools that the diagnostic has provided us based on the group's needs, and we basically have a remediation for the group. So it's something we're practicing and of course, it's not something that we tell the children, but it's more like, hey, let's engage in this, and this is what we're focused on today. And it could be a board game, it could be a word find around the room, it could be something that's even online, that they're kind of like a web search. So it's really fun, engaging material. The remaining time, which is about 15 to 20 minutes, we're then focused on our scoping sequence for the year. So our curriculum that comes from the iReady and New York State is then what we're reinforcing. It could be comprehension, and a lot of that is what you're seeing go home for homework. Comprehension, vocabulary, spelling, so that's all integrated into that small group. Then during transition times is when we host our conferences. So it could be during a working snack, we might pair some kids up, they could be working on an activity, or we might take a group, or an individual student rather, and that's when we're meeting with them one-on-one and doing something that's based on either their sub-skill level or a challenging, more enriched activity. So we really kind of interconnect both, and we're able to do that from the monitoring and the reporting we get from the iReady. The other instructional method is the online, and that is created once their scores are input. iReady creates for them this very unique kind of pathway of instruction for them. It's very tailored, it's quite unique, and it's generally based on how they performed in areas of weakness. So it focuses on their areas of weakness. Sorry. And so it focuses on the areas of weakness for those who are still struggling within certain sub-skills. Those who have maxed out or who have gone beyond what's required of the second grade are then challenged with a higher level. So there's a little bit of both through the iReady. They're working on skills that need continued practice, and then they're also in activities that are challenging and enriched, which is really wonderful to see, because sometimes we'll hear them be like, this is too hard. And so we know that that's our time to really step in, and we have to go back and look and kind of tweak things, which we have the ability to do when it comes to the instruction part. And that leads into our monitoring. So through the monitoring, when we go in, and we generally go in each day just to see how they're doing the day before, but we get an immediate report on how the class performed, how each student performed. We're able to track them. We're able to see exactly which lessons they've performed or working on. We're able to see what they've passed and what they're having a difficult time with. From that, we then really do tweak what they're doing in the classroom. If we see a child getting 100% in 8 minutes on specific lessons, we pretty much feel that they've mastered it from the technology. We will then work with them and give them our own type of assessment to see how they're doing. And if that's the case and we feel that they've done really well, then we actually can kind of shift levels and lessons. If we see a student is having some difficulty and perhaps they're not passing and they're saying this is too hard or I need some review, we can also tweak that and provide extra lessons. And then we know that as well, once we've seen how they've performed, we then continue on in our small group. So these are the 3 main points of iReady. And tonight, we're actually going to show you what the diagnostic looks like. And then we're going to give you some time and an opportunity to really be interactive with the program and go through the instructional process of working on it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we monitor each student. So if we talk about the diagnostic, it's very different than what the children are doing on a daily basis. The daily lessons are about 15 to 20 minutes for each domain. The diagnostic is a little bit more intense than that. So it identifies the strengths and weaknesses, like I had mentioned, by domain and sub-skill. Takes about 45 minutes per subject, and you'll see in the next few slides why, because it's very detailed in what it's having the children work on. It's administered in a quiet setting, so we generally have them here, and we usually go across the hall so that they have no external noise or interruptions. They are given paper and pencil for math, although there's also a tab that they can use. A lot of them like to work it out on paper and pencil. And it can be taken in multiple sessions. Some kids need a break. You know, it could be too much for them, so if they want to take that break, have a snack and go back, that's great, or if they want to return the next day, that's fine as well. And it does provide us really comprehensive reports for really, well, it wouldn't only be for us, but I think it would also be for the entire administration or a student body, because you'd be able to see not only each student or class, but even the school as a whole. So it has some really wonderful features. So I'm going to shift over to just a little video for you. That's just a couple of minutes. That just gives you an idea of how the diagnostic begins and what the children are viewing, but how it really engages them. It's very kid-friendly, it's very interesting, and it also provides them with a lot of guided practice.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to our own special test. This test is special because it changes based on how you answer each question. This test may feel different than other tests you've taken. Some questions may feel too hard, some questions may feel too easy, but a lot of the questions will feel just right. If you haven't learned something before, don't worry. Just take your best guess. It's kind of like trying on shoes. But have you ever tried on several sizes until you found a pair that fit just right? That's what this test is like. But if you want to get that just right fit, you need to take your time and try your best. Here are a few tips. Use your pencil and paper if you need to work out a problem. Read each question and every answer choice carefully. Double check your answer before moving on. Remember, if you rush and don't take your time, you may need to retake the test. Maybe you haven't learned how to answer every question you see on the test, but that's okay. If you don't know the answer, just take your best guess. Based on how you do in iReady, your teacher will know exactly what you've learned and what you need to learn. This way, you can work on lessons that are just right for you. Lessons that are not too hard or not too easy. Got all that? There are just a few more things you should know before you begin. Want to repeat a question or hear something read out loud? Roll over the speaker icon. To answer a question, Click your answer, then click the Done button. Other questions might use base 10 blocks. Click the plus or minus signs to add or remove the base 10 blocks. Click here to start over. Here's another tool, the hundreds chart. Click on numbers in the chart to add highlight or remove highlight. Click here to add highlights to or remove highlights from an entire row. Sometimes you will need to use a calculator. Click the numbers and symbols to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Click the equal sign to find your answer. Some questions will use a 10 frame and counters. You can drag one counter at a time to the blank 10 frame. Click this eraser icon to undo your last move, or click here to start over. The test might ask you to plot a point on a number line. Click anywhere on the number line to place the point. Click it again if you need to remove it. When you are happy with your selection, click the Done button. You may also be asked to draw points or lines on a coordinate grid. To draw a line, click any 2 points and a line will automatically appear. If you make a mistake, click here to undo. Alright, are you ready to begin? Just one more thing. Click start, and good luck.
Thanks, Judy. So I'm sorry that you weren't able to see the icons below. Unfortunately, it wasn't allowing me when I was trying to pull up. It was pulling the screen from behind. But did you understand pretty much how it provides additional tools for learning and instruction?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure you can. I was just going to ask any questions. That's okay.
Happy to respond.
Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. So, first question is iReady basic? I mean, they call it diagnostic. It's just like a test. Is it like Iowa Test of Basic Skills, like that type of like old school test?
So that's only one part of the iReady. So the iReady does have a diagnostic piece, and that's used to baseline and track the students. So the way the test is developed is from the New York State standards and also from the Common Core. So the company, the publishing company that's created this, has basically taken scientists and math experts and teachers, and they've taken from past tests and also with the current Common Core, and they've developed based on the domains, like the reading, and I'll tell you more about that, the reading and math. They've taken each strand and they've created questions that are within the second grade and beyond or below to create the questions that support learning.
Oh, okay, cool. So,
And then the daily lessons support.
yeah, I know
everyday learning.
You've been using this, right? because I know Alcom said it's already. So
Yeah.
why is it now like official, like a soft launch and it's the official launch or something? Or because they're taking the test now? Or why is it now?
It's an
Like-
intro, it's just educational.
I think it's just a module that's
Oh.
more commonly used to really support their learning and to give them more direct instruction. And I think that that's what they're really benefiting from. They're benefiting from having two teachers and working in groups and working together and sharing and pairing and thinking. And there's a lot of hands-on activities that are happening in the classroom. What's so wonderful about having this type of a tool, it's really powerful because it is aligned with the state. And of course, for districts that are participating in state exams, it would definitely prepare them for that. But it also fills in a lot of gaps, and that's where I'm going next with
I
this.
think parents need just as a general statement, like we need, or at least I do, is education on how to even do Common Core math and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't learn that. I learned like
Sure.
base 10. That's about it. And then they just glossed over it. Like that was probably the most they touched, at least in Westchester schools in the 80s.
But I think that's so common, like what you're saying, I think any parent, and us as parents as well, if we were educators, would feel the same way, that it's very foreign and very difficult to understand because there are new methods and practices and algorithms, and there's just so much more that's required, which is really great when you think of in the long run. It's really preparing our children for, later on their educational career in college and professions. And so you're not alone is what I want to tell you. It is difficult, I think, for most parents to understand. So if at any time, is there any questions, does anyone have any questions about anything that we've reviewed so far? Great. Something I did forget to mention, in your folders you do have a copy of the presentation that we're showing tonight. So if you want to take notes, you won't be quizzed at the end. But if you want to take notes, you definitely can. And if you do have questions, please let us know. Okay, so going to what Mr. Seff just had said about asking how this is developed, these are the domains. So this is the reading domain, and I think that the next two slides illustrate really well what this sub-skill that I've mentioned is, how the diagnostic and the everyday lessons pinpoint the child's sub-skill level. The domain for reading shows foundational skills, vocabulary, comprehension. On the iReady program, when we go into the monitoring reports, actually these two are two separate domains. So the most important from the beginning of any child learning how to read are the foundational skills of phonological awareness and phonics. If a child is able to rhyme, blend, omit letters, substitute letters, decode, essentially they're going to be great readers because they're going to have great word attack skills. From that, they'll probably develop a stronger vocabulary and they'll be able to have strong comprehension with practice. If a child has weaker foundational skills, then the issue will be that they will suffer with the later domains. So the idea of iReady is to really target those deficiencies down to sub-skill. So when we say sub-skill, what it's doing is focusing on all the strengths what the child could do and providing online and within our small groups challenges, enrichment. And then it's also targeting what areas are weaknesses. And from that, through the daily lessons on the computer, and then with the small group instruction, and then the kind of student conferences or pair conferences, that's when they're focused more on how to fill in those gaps. So there's a lot of practice that goes into this. What's really wonderful though is that your child's working on something that they really need some remediation or assistance with, and it's not something they're doing just to repeat or as a whole group on a daily basis. The same is for mathematics. If we look at the 4 domains, number and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, geometry, measurement, and data. And we see this all the time. If a child can count and understand skip counting or understands place value, ultimately they're going to have a much easier time with strategies and adding and regrouping. If they're struggling, yeah, just overall number sense. If they're struggling with understanding a base 10 and adding on to that, all of these other domains will then be troublesome for them. So through the iReady, this is really what it's attacking, is looking at the areas of difficulty and then providing everyday lessons. And what Chris and I do is we provide our small group lessons, and then also we go in and we monitor how they're doing. And if we see that they're doing really well and we're tracking them, then we're able to actually make some changes, which is wonderful because it's not a stagnant program where they're always on one level. We can actually go in and then shift them up or decrease levels if we think it's too much for them. And that's all, again, based on the data that we're given. And a lot of also, from our own experience of working with them, we just are able to see and give our own assessments with the child. And you know, we feel that we really do know them best more than any computer program. But this is wonderful because it does really connect and piggyback everything that we're doing with state standards. Okay, so this is the fun part. And this is where Chris is going to take over. And you're going to have an opportunity to engage. Sorry. And log on as your child. So what you're going to do, if you look at your screen, you all have a screen where it has a login. Your children were so kind enough to actually write their username. So it would be capital first letter of their name and capital first letter of your last name. And then your password is student. And we're going to tell you what to
put in the state.
We did
We
already.
did already
We
for that.
already went to each computer and put New York in. So just like I hope you guys are excited to get on, that's how the kids are each day. And yes, Mr. Steph, they do go on every day. And they flip. They do one lesson in math and one lesson in ELA each day. So they should, if you speak to him, Abraham at home about his day, most likely iReady will always be included in the discussion. He is going on every day.
Are you
He's
okay? Is it
familiar
working?
from last year as well.
Yeah, I thought so.
Backspace is in front of
Yeah,
it.
I was just wondering like the
Delete is,
timing.
you're deleting what's in front of it.
Thumbs up, did you like it? Okay, great. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the teacher report. So this is the third point of our workshop this evening. And now it really comes back to us as the teachers and how we effectively and efficiently group our students and track their progress and perform and administer and provide challenging and supportive lessons in the
Wow.
classroom.
Not only that, but
I'm s- So we take a look, the class profile report. I'm just gonna briefly tell you a little bit about what each is. Class profile gives me an overview, gives us both an overview of the class as a whole, how they performed on the diagnostic, where they fall, as well as tracking them through the year. The
Right.
student profile is a great snapshot of who the student is. It shows how they performed on each diagnostic, it shows how they're performing in each strand, it gives us tracking and if they're reaching their annual progress, as well as a narrative, so the areas and the sub-skill, so let me rephrase that, the sub-skill areas when they experience difficulties. And those are, let's say, the red flag areas that need further practice. In the narrative portion of the profile, it will tell me exactly how the child performed, what it needs continued practice with, and then it will provide me with recommendations for tools that I could use. And I'll show you what some of that is. The class response to instruction is something that we track regularly. It's just showing how they're moving along and how they're doing. And then the student response is just more of the individualized student, how they're moving along with each strand, how they're moving along with the expected yearly progress. The New York State Standards Performance, that again is all the lessons that are aligned with the New York State and then the Common Core as well. So these two are
Those are just
interconnected.
automatically
Right.
inbred into the
Mhm.
program.
right. So we'll take a look at what the tool for instruction. This is actually one of the recommended tools for instruction. So in the narrative, when I read about a specific child and it may say that child's having difficulty with comparing and contrasting, it will provide me this little PDF icon that I can click on. And so if I decide to use this in my small group, it's something that I could pull up, print out, and then it gives us just helpful suggestions on how to really develop that specific skill. So this is something that we would work on the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of our small group instruction or during a student
For our
conference.
mini lesson, right.
Yeah, it's more of the mini lesson. And then it even shows how the Common Core and the state standards are connected to each lesson. So all of the lessons that are provided are all aligned with what's expected of second grade and beyond. Okay to move on? Okay, so here's one of the measures of individual gain. So this is something we would see on a student's report. What's great about this is that it shows us each domain, so it gives us the domain, how the student performed as an overview. So it kind of rounds it out to how they performed in total. However, the greatest thing about it is that we can go into each domain specifically and see, just like you somewhat saw how your child performed on their completed lessons, on their progress report, our progress report is very different, that we can click on and we can see exactly what they did and then also how or what should be done next to support their learning. This is something that we also look at the time, and that's something that I look at quite often when I'm looking at their daily lessons. If I see a student took 5 minutes and they failed, then I know it's not based on ability. I know it's just that
Click, click, click.
right, it's just either they rushed through it, they were distracted, it was a transition time, so that I would then reassign that lesson for them to go back. If I see a student is frequently receiving 100%, again, it is 5-8 minutes, then I know, you know what, that might be too easy for them. So we have the authority to go in and not only just monitor them and track them, but really make decisions based on, are we increasing their lessons, are we providing additional lessons? And I think that's a wonderful tool because it's not keeping them on this kind of stagnant kind of climb, but, well, would it really be that much of a climb? But it's not keeping them in the same position. It's actually having the ability to really move around their levels and then see how they're performing. And that's something that we do quite often. If we see a student, you know, even working and they're done quickly, then we may go in and assign them something that's a little bit more challenging.
And we know from working with them, either in the small group or individually, or in a whole group, we know what their capabilities and their abilities and strengths and weaknesses are. So it's fun to
Right.
play around with it because we know them. We're able to connect with them. So we know if we were to change something or add something or move them somewhere, if we move them up, we have, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Hope, and we know that they can do it. You know, we're definitely able to see their results on the screen, but also in group as
Right.
well.
And I think that as professionals, we definitely take this into consideration. But I think also we take into consideration how they're performing in class.
Right.
Because not every kid is a tech-savvy kid.
Right.
Not every kid, although they love it, you know, I think that when they're really hands-on and they're engaged and they're talking with friends and they're bouncing ideas off one another, that's really where we see, you know, their learning and how they're really making strides. with this as a support, absolutely, it's a great, great tool. But as, to piggyback off what Krista said, I think that, you know, ultimately, a lot of what we're doing in the classroom supports what iReady's doing, and then we're able to take from the iReady and create our classroom activities.
And it is one tool. That's
Right.
what
One
that
tool,
is.
Sure.
exactly.
One tool.
And this would be the same for math, where we would be able to go in and see an overview, and then take a look at how the children are doing in each strand of the sub-skills. And that is the end of our presentation. So are there any, thank you. We hope we made it clear. I think our goal for this evening was to just give you an idea of what it feels like in the classroom with the iReady technology, and then just an idea of what it feels like with Chris and I working in the individual groups. And of course, you're always welcome to come in if you want to join us and you want to just take a peek at how things are working in terms of rotations and small group instruction. You're welcome at any
You are
time.
always welcome to come in.
Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Great job, Liz. Great, great job.
No questions? Okay.